Board games. Do you really need to play Catan like we're going to do today? Do you need to play all the staples? And I think we will tell some fables out of how we're going to know some board games that you'll also know, but by playing them, we know them more intimately. That's what we're going to talk about, you see. Board games, it's what we're talking about. Do you need to play all the staples? I'm not going to shout. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. 10 a.m. is time for Bessie Beats and Board Game Leather. Is it important to play all the staples? I am here with Chris Kingsnorth and here with Rory Muldoon.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
And
Very
you?
good. Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
And this is quite unusual. I don't normally have people. I think it's very unusual. I'm not going to say this is the first time, but having people actually on site as opposed to, in location like at a convention or something, it's unusual for me. But we have come together to play Catan. You've never played before.
I have never played Catan. It's my, my hidden secret of my
you don't hide
shame.
it.
No, it's true. I have said it many times. It's my shame of being, a game designer and having never played Catan.
But you own it.
I do own it. And it turns out if you put it out, take it out of the box, it fits into what's essentially a small wallet for people who like to save space.
I was going to say that pleases me greatly, but I imagine there were other people that were upset a lot.
Yes, and what's quite sad is you can't actually put the popper down.
Oh,
so that's
no.
a bit.
You need to get one of those old-fashioned folders with the little string.
Oh yeah, with it around,
Yeah.
like manila.
Yeah.
Was this just for transportation for bringing?
It was, yeah. I haven't. Don't worry, I've not burnt the box or stamped it or put it in a skip. It's still at home. But I thought for transportation, for my rucksack, that would be the best.
Yeah, and it's going to stop the box getting damaged.
Exactly. Yeah, keeps everything nice and pristine. Mine's on the cupboard.
This is something that we talked about on a stream, and you were watching that stream.
It was, yes.
And then you said you've not played this game either.
I've not. No, I'm not. I felt like I couldn't leave Chris to vocalize his shame alone. I felt like I should also do it. So yes, I've never played Catan. I don't know. I think it's the sort of thing where lots of people who I talk to who were like modern board games got into it through Catan. So it sort of has that like
it's something that came out of Germany, but even before it was translated, it went to America, came to Europe, and I think a lot of people even learned it's maybe translated the rules for themselves. It's really interesting. And when I first got into board games, I looked up on Board Game Geek what are the best introductory board games, and I think I bought Carcassonne and Catan because those ones seemed the most exciting to me. And Carcassonne I still appreciate. There's nothing quite like it. Catan I do kind of appreciate, but for me I passed it on because once I got Ham the Boss, I felt I'm not sure I would ever really play it again. And so it's been a few years for me, although it's something that I've really enjoyed.
Yeah, I think Carcassonne was probably. I mean, I was playing a few things, a little bits and bobs. But I think Carcassonne, I played it on a trip to Iceland. My girlfriend and I stayed in an Airbnb, and they had a copy of Carcassonne, which didn't have English rules, but we managed to kind of muddle our way through. And I think that was probably, if you're talking about kind of older games that kind of older modern games that help people kind of ease them into the hobby, that Carcassonne was definitely my introductory game. And so I kind of bypassed Catan, I suppose. And like you say, I think Carcassonne is still a game which I would play now. I still enjoy it. And if people want to play it, I'm happy to play it. But I often hear from people who have bought Catan or who got into Catan that they don't necessarily want to play it anymore because they have other options that they would rather play. And so I guess that's why I've never played it. But I'm curious, I'd like to play it. I would play most games, I think. Yeah,
and I think this. So before we get into whether it is actually important for this or if it's just something that is it for fun? Is it going to be good research? Is it for our benefits as a designer? And I think there's a bit of that. But first of all, I thought we'd talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. And I'm having to awkwardly stretch over to get to all the things, but do you want to talk about what you've been up to in the past couple of days, Rory?
Yeah, so I've been at EGX, which is primarily like a video game convention, but they've got a tabletop area this year. So I was there on Thursday, and I was there yesterday. I'm taking a little break today to come here, which is nice. And it's been cool. It's been nice to play some stuff, some video game stuff. Thursday was quite quiet. I guess normally in most conventions the Thursday is a quiet day, so I got a chance to kind of wander around and
normally Saturday is actually the busy day. So
I know it is, but we had already planned this when I got offered the space at EGX, and I thought, no,
are you running the board games? What exactly are you doing there?
I am just showing off Postmark Games. So I am one half of Postmark Games, and we make Voyages and Aquamarine, which are like print at home games. So I've got those that folks can play. I've got a table set up, and also some demo sheets of Voyages that people can grab and take away with them. So the demo sheets are still there today. They are kind of standing in for me and probably doing a much better job.
I'm sure that people would always appreciate someone guiding them through it. Don't be too hard on yourself.
I think you found the holy grail, the game that can
play
teach itself and play itself while in your absence, which I think you've done it.
Well, I mean, as is most of the case when you go anywhere where there are board gamers or tabletop gamers, everyone is super friendly. So I've been very well looked after by the folks at RP Haven, who are running the roleplay section, and they've kind of, so we weren't all spread out. They were like, come in with us, and they've taken some of the sheets and they're handing them out for me. So yeah, big shout out to them. Super friendly.
Hey,
Gary
RP
Haven, they've been great, and then there's some other designers there today as well. You should definitely check out their games. There's a game called Shaft. Sam is the name of one of the designers. I don't think I met the other.
That one. Is it based on the movie at all?
It's not. No, it's like a sort of alien. You're being chased by aliens, kind of semi-cooperative game. I think, from what I understand. I haven't played it yet, but I hope to play it on Sunday. And then David King, who I know has been on your show, friend of the show, David King is also there with Wilmot, which is a board game version of Wilmot
yes,
Warehouse,
I know that one.
Which I did get to play yesterday, and I thought was really, really great.
That's really interesting. It's kind of a memory game where you tell a story in order to do the memory, and I think it's interesting because one of the LDEC contest entries, so we had 12 entries this year, and I've still not announced the top 5. I'm hoping that we get to do that like in the within a month-ish, and then hopefully I will announce also the winner. Because anyway, one of them was done as repeatable, where you're basically using the cards to tell a story.
Okay.
And so then you use the story to remember what 2 letters are on each of the cards.
Yeah, okay.
And the interesting thing is that you don't think you'll be able to get through it, but people routinely get like 20 cards, which is really impressive.
Yeah. Well, I played it yesterday with Sam, who's one of the Shaft guys, and we did really badly. But what I thought was interesting is how quickly you do get to the point of you're forced into a position where you have to come up with some system, some kind of storytelling, because otherwise you have no hope of memorizing the tiles. So I really like that element of it. It felt very organic, like you're not kind of forced into storytelling, which I've played some storytelling games in the past where you're kind of pushed into having to tell a story, which can make some people feel uncomfortable. But I feel like with this, it's a necessity to play the game, and so
the story doesn't have to be interesting or well crafted. It's just a tool. Memorable.
It's just a tool to help you remember.
I'm going to say I did a little bit of playtesting for this. I'm sure that it's changed quite a bit because things do change.
They do change, yeah.
But both times that we played it, I think that we managed to win it. So.
Wow. Okay.
Shots fired.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's got much harder since.
That's definitely what it is.
Yeah.
When Bez played it, this is a bit easy.
No, there were a bunch of us, and so I think that everyone repeating it together. I think that I think there was a question of whether we should be able to repeat all the things with each other between every single turn, which is what we were doing, which is maybe making it a little easier.
That's interesting. No, well, actually, because we blind play tested it, and So read the rules and then started playing, and then kind of David only jumped in when when we got something wrong, and afterwards. David made the point that we didn't really, in between rounds, we didn't discuss what the board state was, which I hadn't really occurred to me for some reason. But actually, that sort of repetition, I can see how that could help the game, because you do need to remind yourself of where things are, because the game has been designed in a way which you do get overwhelmed, intentionally overwhelmed, because that's part of the enjoyment. That's what makes the tension of the game. And so, a way to combat that sense of overwhelming is to keep reminding yourself of what's there. So yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a sort of game where it would get. I enjoyed it a lot, but I think it would get even better with repeated plays, where you understand the kind of the meta of the game and how.
And in one game, so all the symbols that have you played?
I haven't. I've
so
heard
all
of it.
all the things you're remembering are weird little symbols, and so then you could totally interpret these symbols in many ways. But then once you played it once, you're going to say, okay, this was Popeye's beard, for example. Well, Popeye's stubble or Popeye's chin or whatever. Like we, came up with stuff. And in another game, maybe we'd say, okay, this is Popeye's chin again. And like Popeye's chin comes into the story randomly. Or maybe not.
Sounds like the name of a great prog rock band, Popeye's Chin. I think that's it. We should start a band called Popeye's Chin. That's what I'm going to suggest.
But no, that sounds really cool. And I want to share these photos that I put onto Twitter. So firstly, yesterday we started off playing this way from Josh E, which is a game where you control dogs, you're picking up stuff and you're taking them back to your owners. And as you can see there, you're trying to hide from your owners. So the owners don't like you digging up stuff. And so you can only... Well, if you are in plain sight, they might, depending on how the dice go, they might be like, no, you can't do that. So you've got to hide behind the bushes and stuff.
Amazing. I love the 3D sort of terrain as well. That's really cool.
So you can, you can see my little red dog in the background. And then Mandela was playing their game. This is something involving llamas. I'm not sure about this one. I've not played it. There was also Gifted Gift Givers, which is a really interesting, lovely idea. And I had a quick game. This is actually quite a late... It's only been going three weeks, but it feels like it's getting towards the end of design and towards the start of development.
Okay. Nice.
So this is an abstract game I thought of where I wanted it to be about placing stuff and making shapes, but trying to place your opponent's stuff in not useful places and placing your stuff in useful places. So you always have to place yours and your opponent's. And then before I playtested it, I did a little bit of solo playtesting for this one because abstract strategy, like okay, it's something I can fiddle around with. What you're doing is you're placing things in little triangles. So you always place one of your color, one of your opponent's color, and one neutral thing in a block piece. And you're basically making shapes. Once you've made a shape, you can remove it from the board and then get one of those special powers. That's what those cards are. And then once you've removed your things to get those special powers, those special powers will allow you to make bigger shapes, hopefully. And then those bigger shapes will get you better superpowers. And then there's the ultimate shape. And the ultimate shape, you just win.
Fantastic.
Now, there was a problem where when I started it off, people didn't always win. And so I started giving those things points values. But then the second week, like the first week, it was fine. I kind of established, okay, these are the shapes that need to be in the game. Second week, it was like, okay, change the boards, don't want to have those tiny things. But this is unsatisfying when it sometimes doesn't end. What if one of the people is actually just trying to ruin the things and one of the people is trying to make the shape? So one person, because that's, the way that it kind of feels less unsatisfying. So while I was away at Tabletop Gaming Live, I was wandering along on a long walk from the centre of town, like a couple of hours walk. It was a good walk. It was like 4 miles. And trying to think, okay, what abilities would be on these shapes to make it really likely that someone's able to make their shape even when someone's actively trying to stop them and doing literally nothing else. And so I worked out a bunch of things. And indeed, the person who was the builder did manage to make the shape, although it was through a blunder. And I said, can we go back one move and see if you can still do it. And then they did still manage to do it just a little bit later. So it feels like what the previous version was lacking wasn't that I needed to make it asymmetric, but just I needed to make the powers more better.
Okay, yeah.
And then after the game yesterday, I went to a cafe where I had a couple of drinks for free, which is lovely, and then sat there for an hour and did some more solo testing, and I've got even more powers which are more about building than destruction. So now it's more about moving your own stuff and placing more of your own stuff, because before it was removing some of the opponents and moving anyone's, which is a really but you can still block. I want to make that clear by just where you place stuff, so that's still a big part of the game, but it's not the key part of the game. And I'm really excited with these new powers to kind of, I feel like now I've got to kind of think, do I pitch it as an abstract game? Is there a market for this? And do I try and put on a theme somehow? What could this be? And I'm trying to, it's at the point where I've got to decide, it's kind of done now. What do I want to keep working on it or not?
Nice.
But hello, Timmy, who says, no power, no internet on data. Oh, you're on your data mobile. Wow. Well, I hope it's not costing you too much to watch this. And hello, Timmy's in Nova Scotia. So,
fantastic. Well, thank you for tuning in via data link. Sounds very futuristic. I like it.
This is just kind of, those green cubes, they kind of look like computer renders, don't they?
They do, yeah, you're right.
But
they are real.
This is real.
As far as we know.
Yes. Also, in the second round, this was something from Andrew Beardsley, who, I got that, City of Zombies. I tagged them wrongly. This was Sebastian and Doric playing a few of my games, including Questable, which is an L deck submission game. Sebastian's potential expansion for Underground, and Ellie Dix's game. This is super brilliant. So Ellie Dix made a game about fairground stuff. You roll dice, you place dice, and the publisher's like, this is cool, but there's too many dice. We're not going to publish a game with this many dice in it. I mean, it is fewer than SKORA, but it's meant to be more mass market. So people aren't. So then Ellie was, okay, what can I do? Oh, how about D2s, like basically coins? Yeah. And then so there's like a 1/6, a 1/2, a 1/3, like all the combinations. And so you reach into a bag, pull out the things, and then flip them, shake them. And then because of this, there's a little mechanism where you roll the coin down a thing and try to get it to land on something, almost like darts.
Wow.
And that would never have existed. And I think it's taken the game from something that was quite nice and pleasant, and I wouldn't say no to something that I would actively be like, yes, let's play this game.
So do these discs roll down like a little ramp?
Yes, and you kind of move the ramp and try to aim at the higher number.
That's like me doing bowling. So I'm not very good at bowling, so I like, those frames you can put the balls on. It feels like it's got that.
Oh my gosh, Timmy says the hurricane is still loud. Got to say, phone battery, be back soon, maybe. Lots of love to you, and thank you for tuning in. Keep safe, and all the best with everything. Lots of love. But recent highlights. Do you want to talk about Tabletop Gaming Live?
Yeah, sure. So I was at Tabletop Gaming Live and saw you there, Fez, which was it feels like longer than last weekend ago. But it was
only on Saturday.
It was, yeah. So I went as part of Stone Sword Games, I worked for, but I was specifically taking Cosmoctopus, which is the game by Henry Audubon, which we're bringing it to Kickstarter soon. And I basically had a table and me and that game, and I played that game all day. We also had our large inflatable tentacle with us, which you may have noticed if you're
I was sad to not be able to see you on Sunday. But I think that, so basically, am I allowed to share the reasoning? Do you think that's...
Yeah, so it's one of those things that from my point of view, it was the decision of the company rather than me. So yeah, we can talk about that. That's fine.
So basically, Chris and a bunch of other people are on staff and being paid, it's kind of a day in lieu. So if you were there on the Sunday, that would have meant that you would have had to take a day off some other time. So the decision wasn't, okay, we're a bunch of people, we're going to do this, or we're not, there's not much else that we're doing. It was, okay, we're a company that's big enough to have employees that we are paying, and if we pay you for tomorrow, I'm not getting this development time. And fundamentally, so what's your boss's name? James?
James, yep.
James made the decision that, Sunday's going to be dead, there's no point in coming. And it was about 20%. I don't know. I don't want to name numbers.
No.
But like, it was a lot noticeably quieter than Saturday. And when I was walking around, Peter Hazelwood made the point, well, you can tell it's quiet because us exhibitors are just chatting to each other. And
I think it was nice from what I've seen. I think people who like wandering around playing games, I think it was a really nice experience for them because there was less of the hustle and bustle and to push through and get things. And from my point of view with Cosmoctopus, like the table was, whether there were 1 million people there or 20 people there for the day, from my point of view, I would have played the game the same amount of times, right?
Because you were always...
Because I'm always doing that. But I think for as an overall
so
thing...
So you never actually had a quiet moment?
No,
okay,
and that from my point of view is great because I'm at the stage now where I just want as many people to come play the game and experience it. But people go to these things for different reasons, and I think they've got to make the decisions based on that. But I personally had a great time, enjoyed showing Cosmoctopus to people, got a trip to Manchester, which is always nice. And then since then, this week I've been mainly doing gardening, if I'm honest.
Oh, wow.
With you. Yeah, so it's that time of the year when I've got way too many cucumbers already.
You should have brought some.
I know, I should have done, shouldn't I? That I wouldn't have had it in my bag, and I would have probably just been carrying cucumbers on the train. People might have given me funny looks for that. But hey, I could have thrown a few courgettes in there. Oh no, I couldn't throw a few courgettes in there.
How allergic are you? Like,
well,
could you touch a courgette?
Oh yeah. I can't. So I used to grow courgettes. I had an allotment a few years ago, and anyone that's growing courgettes will know that if you plant a few plants because you want to make sure you want to hedge your bets and make sure you get them. But courgettes are, if they do well, they do incredibly well. And a courgette you have to eat before it gets into a marrow, because a marrow is a harder thing to eat because it's bigger.
Yeah.
So I had one summer I ate a lot of courgettes, maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3.
Is that the only difference? That it's bigger? I mean,
yes,
it's
it is.
Not
They
like,
have more seeds in the middle, so they're kind of a bit more bitter. They're not as delicious. A marrow. Okay. So a marrow is just a big courgette, and the way to eat a marrow really is to scoop out in the middle and then stuff it with something.
Kind of more like a pumpkin.
Kind of more like pumpkin, yeah.
Is this where you developed your allergy?
I did. I ate it. I think I ate too many courgettes, and over one summer because we just had so many of them, and they are delicious.
Yourself to courgette.
Courgettes are delicious, and then afterwards I started getting some stomach issues, and I was like, these are happening every time I eat courgettes.
So technically, it's more of an intolerance.
It's an intolerance. It's not an allergy, but
you're not going to get to asphyxiate.
I'm not. I could happily touch courgette, and I do like courgettes. I think they are.
And you could even eat a slice of courgettes, and you're not going to die.
Yeah. I would not.
I mean, you might have some digestive issues.
I'd have some. Yeah, I'd have some tummy problems, but courgettes are great, and if anyone wants to grow vegetables, I think courgettes are a brilliant thing to grow because they don't really require a lot of... I mean, I'm hijacking your gardening.
So that's fine. Who knew we'd be talking about the ins and outs of marrow and courgette?
Now that leads us to brilliant thing.
Wow.
What's a little thing which is brilliant? Courgettes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also known as zucchini, of course, for our people in other parts of the world.
Yeah, Americans.
And they come in lots of different varieties.
They do.
Like globe courgettes, which I think are very fun things because they look like cartoons.
Yeah.
Like a cartoon vegetable, globe courgettes. It's round, and especially if you get like a yellow one, it's just a perfectly round yellow ball, which is fun. And
I mean, like in supermarkets, everything is somewhat homogenized, right?
Yes.
Because they want to, by having fewer varieties, it means that those things can be more in stock. And customers like to know, okay, I'm going there, I'm able to get the thing. It's true, because sometimes when, right now I've got a drink subscription, I get like up to 5 drinks a day in the morning. Like this sounds really weird, but it is a thing that gets me out of the house in the morning. It gives me a little, you know what, I probably should get out of the house and get my drink. And I enjoy it. It's unhealthy, but it's not the most unhealthy thing. And if I go there and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get this, and then they're like, sorry, we don't have it. There's a little bit of disappointment, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so I can understand why they're saying, okay, we want to lessen the number of SKUs we do, like lessen the number of different items, and we will make sure that these things are in stock. But that also leads to wastage, because if it has to always be in. But anyway, back to brilliant. If you're gardening, as you said, there's just so many varieties. That's the point.
And they don't take up, like tomatoes are probably my favorite thing to grow because they are delicious. But they are, tomatoes. They're as sensitive.
They are, aren't they?
Whereas a courgette is like a hardy.
Water them slightly different time one day, and they're like goodbye, and they just self-destruct.
So they're easy to make. And if someone wanted to grow courgettes, how much land do you need? Could you do it in a dustbin?
You could probably grow up one plant in a dustbin. I think the prohibitive factor with them is that they grow big leaves, and they spread out a lot. So they don't grow tall; they grow wide. So you kind of need a bit of space for them. But if you have a good plant, you maybe get, I don't know, like 5 or 6 courgettes off that plant, which is a lot for when you consider one courgette can be a meal if you prepare it correctly. So you're getting 5 or 6 meals out of one plant. It's a good meal to plant ratio.
It's true. Little shout out for cucumbers.
Cucumbers are also good.
So cucumbers, very excellent plant. What I do is I grow them up a tripod. So you could put a dustbin with some bamboo skewers and tie it in, and then what happens is the cucumbers hang down, and you get space to cucumber.
And they don't grow in weird shapes, because that's the problem when they get stuck in. Like I used to grow them in a greenhouse,
and they became
and they kind of fall behind where the shelf is, and they're stuck in between the panel, and you don't realise you've got a big cucumber growing because it's gone in a weird place. But, cucumbers are great. I would say,
Now, whilst obviously I don't want the internet to know exactly where I live, and I want to say that I don't really have space to grow things. Because it's indoors, but there is a little bit of a stairwell, and even though you're not meant to leave stuff, I've noticed someone else has actually got plants. I will show you. So, I'm thinking, could I actually get away with it? At least having some flowers, maybe even some vegetables.
Do you know what I think would be great? Do you like chili in food?
Sometimes, but I don't feel like I need to have it.
So what's quite nice is chili plants, because they grow in a small container. They look really pretty. If you get small red chilies, they're really, for you. I feel like a red chili plant would be like, there's this plant of choice. Personally, that's what I feel. But they like a little bit of warmth, so actually having them indoors is great. And if you don't want to eat them, they don't need to be kept really, really warm, but they look really pretty, and they'd be bright red, and you could definitely have in a pot. Maybe that would be my personal suggestion.
I feel like this is, I imagine you listen to Gardener's Question Time. I feel like I've sort of always harboured as a desire to be on Gardener's Question Time, and I feel like this is the closest.
We're playing out our fantasy here.
And so I'm going to recommend, Chris has recommended the chili plant. I would recommend maybe a bit more light, but a nice herb garden, because herbs are just great because they're not a meal in themselves.
So you think that once I've tidied up, maybe creates a little garden?
You could get a little, a little tray box or something, and you could grow chives. They're really easy to grow,
vigorous,
and they are delicious because they make any meal taste better.
I will say I do have one plant in here. I don't know if you noticed the Christmas plants
on
the windowsill.
I didn't. Very nice choice.
But that was actually a gift when I moved in from my friend who was helping me, Chris. But I think it's time to get back to the main question.
We've talked
fundamentally. Is it important to play the staples? We've decided that we're playing Catan, and I think there is some utility as a designer for checking out these things.
Yes.
Do you think would you call it important for you? Let's not. Obviously, the bigger answer is it depends. But do you think this is important, for you as a designer, or do you think it's mainly as a player, your curiosity? How are you expecting to go into this? What's your motivation? Or how much are you expecting to enjoy this game?
For me, I think something I've learned more recently as a designer actually is you can play it. A game takes on so many different qualities depending on who you play it with and when you play it and the mood you're in and things like that. So I'm not sure. I wouldn't ever say playing a game is a necessary thing. I don't feel like if I'm designing a particular style of game, I necessarily want to play that style of game, because even playing something to get some information from it, the information you're getting is wildly
filtered.
dependent. It's wildly dependent on the situation. So I'm not sure that that's a
Would
necessity.
you read through the rules instead? Is that how you would get the information to see, oh, how did they solve this problem?
Potentially, or maybe just watch some videos of people playing. I mean, that's not the same thing, but yeah, I don't know. I suppose it's not necessarily playing a type of game I think is necessary. I just really like play in all contexts, and I think making time for play, which is something as a game designer you get to do maybe more often than kind of other people, is really important. And I think it's good to play a variety of stuff, because everybody leans towards stuff that they really like, and actually it's sometimes good to play stuff which you might not think you like if you've got the time for it. I'm not saying you have to, but I find that as an interesting.
Yeah,
open my mind a little
any
bit.
Prerequisites is kind of a bit gatekeeper.
Yeah, I wouldn't say at all.
That,
yeah, I like to play a variety of stuff, and I like to play sometimes,
as you say, if you've got the time for it, if you've got the energy for it,
yeah,
you're probably going to learn something, and it will deepen your appreciation for stuff. And it's good to understand why people like things.
Yes.
If you think, oh, Exploding Kittens is a terrible game, I think it would behoove you to study it until you, potentially study it until you understand why it's actually a good game, why it sold well. Because look, we can look at stuff like Monopoly, which has this inertia, because we could say, okay, it's not a good game at all for 2020 standards or 2022, but and if you wanted to make an argument that the only reason it's doing well is because of inertia, because of how long it's been around, that would be potentially valid. But when you look at something recent that gamers are really beating up on, like they say, oh, Cards Against Humanity, that's terrible. And I'm not saying it's a game for me, but look, the whole abdication of control, the lack of creativity is actually a selling point in Cards Against Humanity. And similarly in people talk about, oh, the dice, it's too variable, but that randomness is actually part of the selling point to some degree in Settlers of Catan, I think.
Yeah, well, we'll find out. Maybe I might love it. I might love Settlers of Catan. I might be like, this is my favorite game. Who knows? But I think not every game is for every person. But if there's a game which is popular and there's people who are playing it, I mean, that can only be good. We're all in the business of making and selling board games. We want more people to play board games, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do. So if there's a game which people are like, I love that, and it's not for me, I can see the importance of that, because it means that people are playing games, and ultimately that's what you want people to be playing games, because if a game can reach a particular audience that other games can't, that can only help everybody ultimately. So yeah,
100%. How about you, Chris? Why do you feel like you have to play this?
I think it's one of those things that I have this habit I've noticed of, if something is popular, I push away from it a little bit, and I don't know why it is. I noticed it first when Game of Thrones came out on TV.
You're a hipster.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think I was, but maybe I am. Maybe this is. But it's one of those things.
You've got a fancy shirt.
I know, and I have got turn-ups on my trousers. Oh no, maybe I'm a secret. Anyway, and it's one of those things that, like, I feel like I push back. I don't know why. I know, right? I have had these since I was 8, and that's. Wait a second, was I a hipster by being a hipster before hipsters were hipsters?
Yeah, because that's the ultimate hipster thing to do, isn't it?
That's very meta. But I feel like I push back a little bit, and I don't really have any justification for that. And I think I'm trying to be better at saying, well, why, sort of challenging that thought. Why haven't I tried these games? Is it just a situational thing, or have I actively made the decision I don't want to play it?
But can I? Sorry, I don't want to try. Carry on.
No, go for
I was going to say, what made you get Catan?
It was given to me. Okay. So it was gifted to me because I think someone went and looked up hobby games and what a great intro games. I've actually had this in my cupboard since I started playing board games.
Okay.
And it's one of those that's always
so
been
this
there.
was something when you started getting into board games. Yeah. Someone's like, "Oh, Chris is getting into board games.
This is a great
what should I give him?"
And I honestly think it was probably a fantastic thing to give me. If it never for some reason, I never got into doing that as a first.
So
one.
this is you coming to terms with the idea that mainstream games can sometimes be good and worth playing.
Yeah, that's it. I'm fighting against those hipster urges, definitely. But also, I think there's always something to learn, even from a game that is subjectively bad for you, if other people enjoy it, or there might be something in there that's interestingly done or badly done, I think there's almost always something you can learn from it. And even if it's just that, like, I like the art style, or I like the way that the board fits in the box, like, it can be things as simple as that you can then use to inform future decisions when you're designing games or you're like advising on games and things like that. So for me, there's always something to learn, even if it's about other people at the table. You know, it doesn't have to be the game itself. It is a vehicle for learning about other people as well as anything else.
And the true reason why I wanted to have you over was because it seems like a really lovely idea for an enjoyable afternoon.
Yeah.
And it's nice to take time off and not always be, now we've got to play test the thing, or now I've got to be doing the Kickstarter update or writing the rules, which I whatever, and be like, we'll actually get to play a game. Because as a game designer, I think that sometimes we feel like we have to justify everything through that work lens. But I'm not sure that that's super healthy.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes it's, let's just play games because we love games.
Because we enjoy it and it's what people do. Yeah, I think that's a really good way of doing it, playing games just because you want to and not because you've got any ulterior motive.
And the truth is, like, to answer the question that I wrote on the thing, is it important to play all the staples? I mean, I would say not really. I don't think it's incumbent upon anyone. I don't think everyone should feel like I've got to do this. Like, if you've not played Carcassonne, like, check it out. But if it doesn't look like a game for you,
then find something else. There's plenty of choice.
I think going back to Chris's point again, a sort of railing against things that are popular, or Ross, More Games Please, Ross tweeted about this a while ago, a few weeks ago, about the sort of mind shift of, as someone who really likes games, if you play a lot with people that don't necessarily like games as much as you do, I think the tendency or the temptation is to always present them with the game you want to play, because you're the perceived expert, you're the board game person, and therefore it's up to you to kind of dictate what gets played that evening. But if you kind of shift your mindset a little bit to giving people the choice, or if someone really wants to play something, just playing that, that's a really, for me, that's more important than playing the staples, is playing games that other people want to play. Because it's very easy to fall into the trap of coercing people to play things that maybe they don't necessarily want to play, or they might not be quite right for them. And I more and more, as I said earlier on, I appreciate playing the right games with the right group.
Absolutely. Can I give a very quick story about Bonanza?
Yeah.
And so, are you familiar with Bonanza?
Yeah, played it a few times.
So, for those who don't know, by Uwe Rosenberg, the lovely twist is that you're not able to change the order of cards in your hand.
Yeah.
And this means that sometimes you have to plant something that you don't want to. And so actually giving someone a gift is a really good thing for you. So sometimes you might be like, oh, would you like to have this? And I'll just give it to you for free. It motivates you to trade. It encourages it, which is really nice. And I thought that this was a social game. This is the main thing. So I had a whole bunch of people that I met in a place called Language Tea Cafe, where people would, speaking at least 2 languages, you had to, I mean, you didn't have to speak both languages fluently, but if you weren't at least interested in learning a second language, it wasn't the place for you.
Okay.
So then one game that I initially brought was Say Anything, which went down really well and everyone was loving it. And then I had a gaming day at my place and I brought out Bonanza. I thought, like, this is a really good game. It's all about the people. But then afterwards I realized, even though it's an interactive game, it's not really about the people. It's about the mechanisms and how people interact with those mechanisms. There's no opportunity, there's far less opportunity for self-expression. There's far less opportunity for facilitating and bringing about conversation, which is really what everyone was getting out of Say Anything. And so me thinking, oh, these are the people who are interested in playing a slightly more complex game. It wasn't due to the rules. It was just that the game was focusing on the rules rather than on the people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think a board game evening or a board game day or whatever, where you play something that maybe doesn't appeal to you as much, but everybody has a good time, is always better than playing a game which you really want to play that other people don't necessarily enjoy, because then you just end up in this kind of weird feeling of like, well, I enjoy playing that game, but I've forced some other people into an hour or two of doing something they didn't particularly like. I mean, yeah, it's in. You could go into kind of the deep kind of social aspects of it, but I find it really interesting. There's a game I like called Battle for Rokugan, which is a sort of quite aggressive area control game that came out a few years ago, but it's very you can't really you're controlling parts of the board, but you don't ever hold on to anything for long. So it kind of I think it can make some people feel uncomfortable because you don't.
There's so much fighting and aggression.
Yeah, and you make a move which secures you something, and the next turn it's gone. So there's a lot of the whole game is about the kind of the ebb and flow of losing and gaining territories, and I find that really interesting. I first played it with some friends, and they didn't enjoy it at all because and it was only in hindsight that I realised the sorts of games that we normally played were like set collection games.
And it's about personal growth.
Exactly.
Achievements.
And Battle Royale is like the opposite of that. You do grow something and then it's taken away from you. And I actually sold the game because I thought, well, maybe that's not the right game for me because I had a bad time playing it. And then I bought it back quite recently, and then I played it with some other friends who really enjoy those types of games, and we had a blast. And it was such a completely different.
That is the key thing, like understanding who these games are for. And I don't know if you saw Jay's recent video on 3 Minute Board Games where he talked about don't buy the game. Basically.
Oh, I saw the blurb, but I didn't watch the video.
I didn't see it, no.
So basically, it's a video encouraging people to think more deeply before they are taken away by Kickstarter hype or a need to feel like you have to have this thing.
Yeah.
Because, as a, people working in the board game industry, we all very much want people to buy our games. Don't get us wrong. There's a vested interest. But at the same time, there's an awareness that, I don't know anyone else who's done it. Like a day before my latest Kickstarter ended, I kind of wrote a big post saying, here's a bunch of reasons not to back this.
It's really interesting.
And I think I would continue doing that, but then make it clearer that I think it's a really good game, but that this is me pointing out the flaws that are inherent in literally anything.
Yeah, it's being honest about the reality of making games.
Yes.
And I think that's the problem with lots of Kickstarters is they're selling an impossible utopian vision. Like, this is the best game you'll ever play, and it's completely faultless.
Yeah.
And, we were sort of in a situation with Kickstarters in particular where all of the press that you get for it is paid previews, which is another discussion point altogether. But you are kind of given almost all of the upside of the game and none of the downside, and it's very hard to find that downside. You can download the rulebook, which a lot of creators give you the option to do, and so if you're that way inclined, you can maybe look through the rulebook and find some stuff which maybe doesn't appeal to you that way. But otherwise, it's quite hard to determine what bits of it you might not like. And there's, I think, even in my favorite games, there's bits that I don't like.
Absolutely.
There's always going to be bits I don't like.
Like, I mean, I was on one of my. I don't enjoy Monopoly, and I love Go. Go is my favorite game. And one time, like when I was on the We Are Not Wizards show, I've been on that show a few times. I talked about 10 things that I hate about Go, or that, and 10 things that I absolutely love about Monopoly. And we kind of because that's the thing. You need to be able to critique things well. But I think that when we talk about staples, there's an interesting thing that no list is actually going to necessarily be for you. And when I started in this hobby, when I found out Board Game Geek, I was like, oh, these are the best games. And I was like, Puerto Rico, amazing. I've played the best game of all time. It's all downhill from here. But I've played, and I was the number one at the time. And, it's a fine game, but there's reasons why you might not like it. There's a million reasons why you might prefer something totally different. And whatever the number one is on any list, it doesn't mean it's a good game for you. It doesn't mean it's a good game for your group. And I think that hopefully we can all agree that, what did I say? Should designers play these games to learn from them? I think we've said it's worth reading the rules, being aware of them, understanding what they're doing.
If you want to, do it.
You don't need to necessarily play everything.
No.
And as a player, just play it if it appeals to you. I don't think there should ever be I have to play Twilight Imperium to be a real gamer.
I agree, definitely. I think that's very off-putting to people who feel like they don't belong in like the tabletop space by saying, here's the list of all the things you've got to play, and if you don't, you're a lesser board gamer. It should be, here's all the games ever. You choose what you like to play. You play what you want. You're welcome. Like, if you want any recommendations, we can maybe make some.
Yeah, any list which says you need to read or you need to play or films you need to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just started... typically, I don't follow those links anymore because they're being kind of needlessly extremist.
I think it's I mean it's interesting. I think when you love something, it's most people when they love something, they want to share the thing they love with other people, and that, like you say, Bez, can quite quickly devolve into, I've played loads of board games and these are the top 10 I've played, so therefore you should play those too. And in reality, I think games can be so nuanced, and the enjoyment you get from them is not necessarily, you can look at on paper what the enjoyment is. I think I've mentioned this before maybe, but whenever I look through like the description or the rules of a new Reiner Knizia game, I can't ever see where the fun is in that, because I think that's the genius of Reiner Knizia is he makes games which are all of the kind of the enjoyment comes from such subtleties and such nuances that when you actually play it, a whole world opens up in front of you, which you're like, I didn't expect to be feeling these feelings or having.
Yeah, if you look at the mechanics, dynamics, aesthetics framework, like the mechanics is what's written in the rules, but there are going to be emergent dynamics because nothing in Go, there's nothing in the rules which says that if you've got 2 holes in your group, then it's always alive. But this is something that people teach you if you're learning from another person, because this is an emergent property of that. And similarly, there's nothing in poker that says, oh, if you've got a good hand, then you might want to continue raising. But if you've got a bad hand, you might want to continue raising in order to pretend that you've got a good hand. And this isn't like, whoa, you're spoiling me by saying the strategy. This is something you kind of need to be aware of before you're even able to start playing, right?
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be in a rule book.
Exactly. And I think also as well with games, like they are so dependent on, or they, like I was mentioning earlier about Battle for Rokugan, they live and die by the experiences you have when playing them. And I think that's what makes games my favorite games. Like my favorite roll and write game is Penny Papers Adventures of Skull Island, I think is the full title. I just call it Penny Papers. There are 3, but that's the one that I particularly enjoy. And it's a game which I never see on like top 10 lists of roll and writes. It's not, and I played a lot of roll and writes, but I like it because I played it a lot during lockdown, and I played it with my family and friends over kind of video chat, and it was a way for us to stay connected. And so when I play it now, it's alive with those memories and those feelings, and so that game itself is imbued with something which is maybe not there for other people, and I think that's why a lot of people like things like a lot of people say Monopoly is their favorite game because they played it when they were younger with their family, and it brings them memories of those nice times kind of sat around a table playing with their family. And so I think when you look at kind of the staple board games, I think so many people love them because of what they allowed them to do and feel. And I guess Catan for a lot of people maybe represented a time in their life when they didn't have an expansive collection or whatever, and they would play Catan every night with the same people, and that therefore is imbued with something which you can't quantify on Board Game Geek or in the rules or whatever.
See, I never even played my copy of Catan that much. I played when I got it. We played it like about 3 times, as part of a day-long marathon gaming session.
Right.
And then I tried playing it with a couple of neighbours, and then they said, "Oh, bring some games," and but I think because they weren't willing to trade, it kind of fell apart.
Yeah.
And good morning, Alex, and I hope you're well. I think that leads us to the end, unless you've got anything else you want to say.
I don't think so. I think it's been a nice conversation about the specifics of those top board games and courgettes.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it to you, Chris.
Mhm.
Would you like to bring us out with a question of the day? Question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. Would you like to ask us a question?
Oh, okay.
It can be about anything.
About anything. Okay. I always struggle to think of questions. I like that when someone says,
Would you like
what do you
Rory?
want to eat?
Does Rory have a question?
Who's got a question? First person to think of a question.
Well, maybe this is sort of linking to what we've been talking about and
Sure.
Chris's hipstery thing. What for both of you can answer this.
Anyone watching.
And anyone watching, what is the thing that you really like, which you don't know that many other people like? What is something that you think, I like this,
Ooh.
but I'm not sure how many other people like this?
So something that you like that is probably the least popular. What's the least popular thing that you enjoy?
That's it. Yeah, that's a good way of phrasing it.
If we're not talking about board games, I am going to tell you right now, I've got a list of the top albums that, and this also includes Paprika, includes EPs.
Okay.
These are the top kinds of. It's got to be more than 10 minutes, basically. An EP or an album that's bringing me the most joy over this year. I started this list, and when something's like, oh, that was brilliant, I move it further up the list.
Okay.
And then Paprika by Japanese Breakfast is quite popular, I believe. A lot of people, someone recommended this to me, and this is a delightful album to wind down with.
Okay.
And it's melodic, it builds up to a crescendo. Making a Move by Lady Bree. This is an album that I randomly encountered. It's a really positive thing.
It's number 2 on the list.
Yes, the number 2 on the list. Or working from I don't do the 3, 2, 1. I do the 1, 2, 3.
Okay, yeah.
Making a Move. This is like a brilliant album that's like just 18 minutes of high energy saying, I am brilliant. So you are brilliant. Let's all be brilliant together. And in another kind of 5 minutes afterwards, saying, yeah, we're going to do it. It's okay. And then so it slows down at the end just for the last 2 songs. But yeah, that's something that I often listen to when taking a shower.
Okay.
And the third thing that I want to say is by Zanny, which was, I think, actually, I might have been recommended Zanny as a Twitch streamer by Ross from More Games, Please.
Okay.
So Zanny does violin loop work and used to do a lot of Twitch streaming. Now is basically stopped. They've got 3, I would call them EPs, called 1, 2, and 3. That's literally the titles of these EPs.
You know the chronology.
Yeah, you know what's coming next as well.
No, you'd be surprised. Actually, after that was an album that didn't have.
Okay.
I think it was called From the Bottom.
Yeah.
No, it was From the Bottom of the Well.
Okay.
But 3 is completely instrumental. It ranges through a variety of emotions. First track is just building into sweeping crescendos. The second track is kind of putting you slightly on edge, and then it mutates through different moods until at the end it's just a joyful finish. And when I listened to this again for the first time in a few weeks, I mean, it's not like a long time, but like yesterday I was like, this is so good. I'm just feeling so high from this.
Okay, great.
Just cycling through and like, wow. And then I've listened to it like 3 times since yesterday.
Wow.
So yeah. 3 by Zanny, spelled Xani.
Okay.
In terms of board games, I'm not sure that I can really answer because people have already got access to my top 10 and all that. So I talk about board games a lot. So
yeah.
How about you, Chris?
So I'm going to go a non-board game thing. I'm going to suggest something that's very popular among children, but very unpopular among adults. But I find it very liberating, and it is spinning around in a circle until you get dizzy.
Wow, that is interesting.
Who's done that recently as an adult?
No,
right?
I haven't.
Do it today. Go and do it, and if that's the kind of thing you like, I find it a very liberating but not popular adult activity.
As one of the cards in Yogi Party, which does not currently exist, but I might be trying to pitch to kind of make it reality. We'll see what happens. Is actually spin around before you draw a card.
Well,
so you enjoy that one.
Maybe that's just for me then.
Alex wants to chime in. Something I find when meeting newer designers is that their design vocabulary is limited by the games they are familiar with. playing modern staples is a great way to expand this. And I kind of agree.
Yeah.
But I would say that playing any games, it doesn't have to be the staples. And I think this is the thing that we've kind of come to the conclusion of, that any games, playing more of any games is good. It
Agreed.
doesn't have to
Yeah.
be the staples.
Chris and I were talking about that very thing this morning. It's really interesting when you play games with people who don't play a lot of games. I think it makes you realize how much you shortcut to words and phrases.
Worker placement.
Exactly. Worker placement doesn't mean anything to someone who doesn't play a lot of board games.
We were talking about the fact that mechanism. If you say to someone, this is the mechanism, and they've never done board games, they won't know what you're going on about. They'll be probably confused by that. And
this is how the game works, I guess, is a better way to put it.
But I think, having that and that, I guess by design vocabulary, the ability to explain your thoughts and ideas and the mechanisms etc. you're then making, learning those terms by playing other games is one way, and talking to other people is another way. So I think it's a good way to get kind of the staples might give you a good grounding in your vocabulary, because it takes you through
I think that let's get away from saying that there's a list of staples to play, and let's just say that there's a play diverse games. It doesn't need to be any particular list.
That's good.
But as a design,
play
Alex,
diverse games with different people, I think, is really
that's
key.
the most.
Alex says worker placement for most people is an HR term, and also
true.
Parcels Live, Volume 1 has been a firm favourite of mine recently. Bit retro, high energy, well-crafted songs.
I'm also going to throw into there, if you've never heard of SKORA. SKORA is an excellent artist that if you like upbeat kind of throwback 70s, 80s music, she is excellent. Very good albums.
I am actually clicking on Parcels Live. It says 1 hour 4 minutes. Do we want to listen to that later on today? While we're playing?
Why not? Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. We will listen to that, and maybe I'll tell you what we think. So that's the question of the day. We enjoy stuff, and over to you. What are you up to? You can share button if you want to. Well, we're going to stop this and then play Catan.
Yep.
And we're going to have a chilled out day. Is there anything you want to share? Something you have to do? Something you want to do? I would actually like to show you. I know you said it's not for you. You've got enough projects. You don't want to work on it together, which is slightly sad because I would love to work on you with something.
Yeah, I would like to as well.
But I would like to show you what I believe is the first ever strategic colouring in game.
I would like to play it.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Let me rephrase that. Technically, there has been a colouring in game which is strategic, but this is the first strategic game about colouring in. So it's not just you do colouring in the game. It's about the colouring in. That is what the game is.
Yeah, I'd like to play
Sounds good.
And Chris has brought Cosmoctopus, which I'd like to play as well.
Excellent. So I'll get to play it even though I wasn't there on the Sunday.
Yeah.
So, what are you up to? If you want, please do share. Recap and wrap up before we finish up. Alex would like to see a 4-color theorem game. Yeah, I can see. For me, that would be a game about maths, because that 4-color theorem isn't the colouring in concept. It's not about the colours used. It's about the mathematical kind of positioning of stuff. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
It's about the fact that you only need 4 colours in order to make sure that on any map, there's never 2 colours adjacent.
Okay, cool. I've learned something this morning.
And Alex is doing the dishes. It is apparently thrilling.
Good job.
Wow.
Recap and wrap up before we finish up. We talked about recent highlights, EGX, Tabletop Gaming Live, plants, cucumbers, courgettes. Courgettes are brilliant. We've decided there's a lot of variety in them.
Yeah.
I was recommended to grow some chilies, some red chilies. Chris felt would be appropriately suggested chives.
Yeah.
And then we talked about all the staples and why we're playing these things, and we decided that there is some utility as a designer. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like you should go and do it. It's not like you have to do it. And also, Rory mentioned it's all about the filters of who you're playing with, and one play of a game is never enough to tell you if this game is good enough. You need to, if you're I kind of almost feel like ideally you reading the rules, I know you say you don't get an idea of the joy of it, but I think that reading the rules and reading the comments and looking at that gives me a better taste of the game than just playing it once.
Yeah,
because
okay.
playing it once is filtered through a particular lens, whereas if I look at that through other people's lenses, then I kind of get a sense of, okay, that's what they like, that's what they didn't like, and I get that purity of vision, being like, okay, that's how they approach that problem. Oh, that's an interesting mechanism.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
But then we talked about that you definitely shouldn't feel obliged to play any games that you need to play before you die, or the top 100 or whatever. And yeah, we decided that we enjoy spinning ground in circles until we are dizzy. Or I think that the lesser known things for me were Zani number 3 and also Making a Move by Lady Bree. My number 1 album this year has been Paprika by Japanese Breakfast, but I think that's better known. But if you don't know that, definitely check it out. And Alex says, maybe you need to force people to have more than 4 colors. There you go. It sounds like you've started off the design.
Yeah, that's it.
Make the game.
It's begun.
It has begun. It sounds like you wanted a game to exist, and now you are putting it into existence.
And that's the brilliant thing about being a game designer is if you want to play a game and it doesn't exist, you can make it.
Hooray!
And it's great.
I love that. And that feels like a good place to stop. If you want to check me out, I'm Stuff by Bez. If you want to check out Rory Muldoon, Rory, where do you like to be found?
I'm most active on Twitter, and I'm WookieBait on there, which is WOOKIEBAIT. Someone randomly tweeted me the other day saying you spelled Wookie wrong, to which I didn't reply, but I would like to reply to them now and say, I don't care.
I did not even notice that.
Wait, that's not spelt wrong.
There's 2 Ks in it, if you're going by the Star Wars spelling. But
Is there?
I did not know that.
That's not how I would spell Wookie.
Well, we learned something today. This is something that's like, less popular, spelling Wookie with 1 K, but actually might be the right way to do it.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
all coming looping back.
That's where I am. I'm on Twitter mostly, and I'm also you can find me at postmark_games, which is the thing I do with the wonderful Matthew Dunstan. So they're the places I would encourage people to seek me out.
The real bait was the Wookiee spelling, says Alex.
Yeah. Very clever.
And if you want to check out Chris, 10minutedesignchallenge.co.uk and Protospiel Nottingham.co.uk.
Yep, that's the one. And if you want to follow me personally for my board gaming stuff, it's Tabletop Apprentice on Instagram. And Paperfork Games for some Cosmoctopus action. So yeah, but you can always
I'd like to ask you a question though, Chris.
Yes.
I think you are now a successful person in the board game space. So when will you stop being a Tabletop Apprentice and start being a tabletop master? Because I think that's surely happened, hasn't it?
Rory, do we ever truly ever become masters, or are we all apprentices forever?
Yeah, that's a lovely thought to end on, I think.
Alex asks, are there any more 10-minute design chat episodes coming?
So yeah, Rob and I did record one the other day, so there will be one coming out. I'm sorry that our schedule has been less frequent than previous, but we've just been busy boys, but we will get them out as soon as we can. We want to do it as a thing where we still enjoy it, so we'll do it when we can.
You don't have any strict schedule. It's
it used to be more strict.
Keep subscribing, and occasionally you'll get just a little lovely gift.
Rob has just got a new puppy, and that's one of the
Are you going to have some minimum frequency? Because I don't want to see 5 in one day. That would be kind of way too much.
Yeah, we'll spread them out.
Like when you get new things, are you going to have them like a minimum of 1 week apart?
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll spread it out so people don't get bombarded too much. And we're hoping if people come to Protospiel Nottingham, we're actually going to record a couple of live episodes. So people come along and join in 10 minutes. And it's only 10 minutes. So you're not going to sit if you don't enjoy it. You can leave after 10 minutes.
And stuffbybez.com/streams will tell you about stuff. I've decided when my next Kickstarter is going to be. It's going to be various games about many things. So it's basically 4 different games, because I realised that I can put 4 games into a large letter envelope.
Okay, yeah.
And so it's basically to allow me to print stuff at once in the print on demand way, because with boxes I need to do 1,000 at once, but I can do different designs on them. So I could do like 100 of this game, 100 of that game.
Yeah.
And if I've got like 5-6 games, it's going to be a lot easier to then make sure that they sell. And also doing it on Kickstarter will give me a much better idea of knowing what to print. So that will help me. And also I do get energy and encouragement, which is obviously lovely.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
And thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rory.
Thank you.
And for everyone out there, thank you for watching. And Alex says, awesome. Always pleased to see 10-minute design challenge, 10-minute design chats even on my feed.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you.
For now, lots of love and bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song to do, bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along.
Couldn't find my hand.
Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye bye, everyone.